The desert highway stretched like a long dusty ribbon under the dying sunlight. Jay Park stood at the small gas station, his weathered hands resting casually on the counter. The station was nothing special, just a single-story building with faded paint, surrounded by endless miles of dry, cracked earth and sparse desert vegetation. At 35, Jay looked younger than his age. His security uniform fit him perfectly, revealing a body that spoke of years of disciplined training. Years ago, he had served in a specialized military unit, but now his world was this quiet gas station in the middle of nowhere. The evening was typical. Dust swirled outside, catching the last golden rays of sunlight. A few trucks had passed through earlier, their drivers stopping briefly to refuel and grab some quick snacks. Now everything was quiet. Jay checked the small convenience store, making sure everything was in order. Snack racks were neatly arranged. Cold drinks gleamed in the refrigerator, and the cash register stood ready. He moved with a calm, practiced efficiency that came from years of military discipline. The sound of motorcycles broke the silence. Not just one or two, but a group of them. The rumble grew louder, and soon a cluster of bikes pulled into the station. They were big machines, loud and aggressive, driven by riders dressed in worn leather jackets. 5 bikers dismounted. Their appearance screamed trouble: tattoos, heavy boots, bandanas, and an attitude that suggested they were used to making their own rules. Jay watched them carefully, his body relaxed but alert. The lead biker, a tall man with a thick beard and a red bandana, walked towards the store. His name was Kang, and he moved with the confidence of someone who was used to intimidating people. Behind him, 4 other bikers followed, their eyes scanning the empty station like predators looking for weakness. Jay remained calm. He had seen types like these before, men who thought aggression was strength, who believed intimidation was power. His years in the military had taught him that true strength was about control, about understanding and managing a situation. "We need fuel and some drinks," Kang announced, his voice deliberately loud. Jay nodded. "Certainly. Fuel pumps are outside. Store is open for drinks and snacks." Something in Jay's tone, a subtle hint of confidence, a barely perceptible readiness, made Kang pause. For a moment, their eyes met. Kang saw something unexpected. No fear, no submission, just a calm, measured gaze. The other bikers started moving around the store. One knocked over a display of chips, another laughed loudly. They were testing boundaries, seeing how far they could push. Jay watched them, his hands still relaxed. He had dealt with more dangerous situations in his past. These bikers were loud, but they were nothing compared to some of the challenges he had faced during his military service. Outside, the desert wind picked up. Dust swirled around the motorcycles, creating small, dancing clouds. The light was fading, turning the landscape into a mix of deep blues and purples. The bikers seemed to be taking their time, deliberately moving slowly, creating tension. They knew they were making Jay uncomfortable, or at least they thought they were. But Jay wasn't uncomfortable. He was patient. He had learned patience in the most challenging environments, military training grounds, high-stress missions, situations where a single wrong move could mean life or death. As the evening deepened and the first stars began to appear in the sky, Jay knew something was about to happen. The bikers were building up to something. Their movements, their whispers, the way they looked at him, everything suggested a confrontation was coming, and Jay was ready. Not with aggression, but with a calm, controlled preparedness that came from years of training and experience. The night was young, and this was going to be an interesting evening. The store's fluorescent lights flickered, casting a harsh white glow on the scene. Kang moved closer to Jay, his leather jacket creaking with each step. The other bikers spread out, creating a sense of deliberate intimidation. "Hey, security guy," Kang called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "How about we have some fun?" Jay remained calm. His eyes tracked each biker's movement, noting their positions, their body language. Years of military training had turned observation into an instinctive skill. He could read potential threats like most people read a book. One of the younger bikers, a thin guy with multiple ear piercings, knocked over a stack of energy drink cans. The loud crash echoed through the small store. It was a clear challenge, a test of Jay's response. "Clean that up," Jay said simply. His voice was neither angry nor afraid, just a straightforward instruction. The bikers laughed. Kang stepped even closer, invading Jay's personal space. "You think you can tell us what to do?" Most people would have backed down. Most people would have shown fear. But Jay was not most people. He had faced armed militants in remote mountains, had survived situations where a moment's weakness could mean death. "These are store rules," Jay replied, pointing to a small sign near the cash register. "Everyone follows them." Another biker, built like a wrestler, started opening snacks without paying. He ripped open a bag of chips, letting crumbs scatter across the clean floor. It was a deliberate act of disrespect. Jay's hand moved slightly, just an inch, barely noticeable. But it was a movement that suggested he was ready. Not aggressive, but prepared, Kang noticed. Something in Jay's body language made him hesitate. This wasn't a scared store clerk. This was someone different. "Where you from?" Kang asked, trying to sound intimidating. "Here," Jay answered simply. The tension grew. The bikers expected fear. They were used to people trembling, backing down, showing weakness. But Jay stood his ground, calm and steady. Outside, the desert night grew darker. Wind pushed against the store's windows, creating a low, steady sound that matched the building tension inside. The youngest biker, perhaps trying to prove something, grabbed a display and shook it. Merchandise crashed to the floor. He looked at Jay, waiting for a reaction. But Jay's reaction was not what they expected. He didn't shout. He didn't move aggressively. He simply picked up a broom and started cleaning the mess, his movements smooth and controlled. This confused the bikers. Their entire strategy relied on provoking a response, but Jay gave them nothing to work with. Kang's frustration grew. He had bullied countless people in small towns like this, but something about Jay was different. There was a quiet strength, a controlled energy that suggested dangerous depths. "How you think you're tough?" Kang challenged. Jay looked up. For just a moment something flickered in his eyes, a hint of something the bikers couldn't quite understand. Experience, capability, a promise of consequences. The store's silence was heavy. The fluorescent lights continued to flicker. Dust from the desert floor seemed to press against the windows, a witness to the building confrontation. No one moved. No one spoke. The bikers felt it first, a shift in the atmosphere. What had started as a simple act of intimidation was turning into something else, something unexpected. Jay finished cleaning. He placed the broom back in its corner, his movements deliberate and calm. Then he looked directly at Kang. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" he asked. The question hung in the air, simple yet loaded with an unspoken challenge. The night was still young, and this was just the beginning. The desert night pressed against the gas station's windows, dark and heavy. Inside, the tension continued to build between Jay and the bikers. Kang's friends had spread out across the small convenience store, their movements deliberate and provocative. A tall, muscular biker named Jin walked closer to Jay. His boots left muddy prints on the clean floor, another calculated act of disrespect. "So you military?" he asked, studying Jay's posture. Jay's response was neutral. "Just doing my job." The younger bikers exchanged glances. Something about Jay was different. He didn't react like other store clerks they had intimidated before. His calmness was unusual, almost unsettling. Outside, a truck passed by on the highway, its headlights briefly illuminating the store's interior. For a moment, shadows danced across the walls, creating strange patterns that matched the growing tension. Kang moved towards the refrigerator, pulling out several drinks. He didn't bother looking at the prices or heading to the cash register. "It was another test, another challenge. Those need to be paid for," Jay said quietly. Jin stepped closer. "Or what?" His voice carried a clear threat. Most people would have backed down. Most people would have shown fear. But Jay remained calm. His hands were relaxed, but his body was positioned perfectly, balanced, ready, but not aggressive. The youngest biker, trying to prove something, knocked over another display. Candy bars and small packages scattered across the floor. He looked at Jay, waiting for a reaction. Jay didn't move immediately. Instead, he simply looked at the biker. Just looked. And in that look was something the bikers hadn't expected, a Depth of experience, a hint of something dangerous. The store's fluorescent lights flickered. The air conditioning hummed softly, creating a background noise that felt almost electric with tension. "We're just having some fun," Kang said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Jay said nothing. His silence was more powerful than any. Words Jin moved closer, invading Jay's personal space. "You think you're tough?" he growled. For a brief moment, something changed. Jay's body shifted almost imperceptibly. It was a movement that suggested years of training, of controlled power. The bikers felt it, a sudden awareness that they might have miscalculated. The youngest bikers. Hand moved towards his belt. A flash of metal suggested a potential weapon. But Jay's eyes had already tracked the movement. His body was already preparing, though to anyone watching he looked completely relaxed. Outside, a coyote howled in the distance. The sound echoed across the empty desert, a wild cry that seemed to match the growing tension inside the store. Kang realized something was different about this security guard. This wasn't just another easy target. This was someone who had seen things, who carried a quiet danger beneath his calm exterior. The other bikers began to feel it too. The excitement of intimidation was slowly turning into something else. Uncertainty. A growing sense that they might have picked the wrong target. Jay's hand moved slightly, just an inch, but it was a movement that spoke volumes. It suggested training, preparation, a promise of consequences. "We don't want trouble," Jin said. But the words rang hollow. The store's clock ticked softly. Dust danced in the fluorescent light. The air felt thick with unspoken challenges. Something was going to break. Someone was going to make a move, and everyone in the store knew it. The night was far from over, and Jay was far from finished. The moment stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Kang's youngest friend suddenly lunged forward, a small knife appearing in his hand. The movement was fast, meant to catch Jay by surprise, but Jay was ready before the movement even began. His body moved with a speed that shocked everyone, not aggressive, not angry, just precise. Years of military training condensed into 3 perfect movements. The knife hand was redirected, then twisted. A quick step changed the entire dynamic of the attack. Within seconds, the young biker was on the ground. Not hurt badly, but completely neutralized. No extra force, no unnecessary violence, just pure, controlled technique. The other bikers froze. Jin, the muscular biker, charged next. His size suggested he was used to overwhelming opponents with pure physical power. He believed his strength would crush any resistance. Jay saw the attack coming before Jin even moved. His body shifted, using Jin's momentum against him. A simple hip throw that looked effortless sent the large man crashing into a display of energy drinks. Bottles crashed, liquid spread across the floor. Kang pulled something from his jacket. A weapon? A surprise attack? But Jay was already moving. His hand struck specific points, nerve clusters that instantly disrupted muscle control. Kang's weapon hand went limp. His entire body seemed to lose its fighting spirit in just one moment. The convenience store looked like a hurricane had passed through. Drinks everywhere, displays knocked over, and 3 bikers completely defeated. The entire confrontation lasted less than 30 seconds. Jay stood calm. His breathing was steady. His uniform barely looked disturbed. He looked more like someone who had just organized a shelf than someone who had just handled 3 aggressive attackers. The bikers couldn't understand what had happened. One moment, they were attacking. The next, they were on the ground, completely controlled. Jay walked to the phone. "Local police," he said simply. "We have a situation at the highway gas station." The remaining bikers looked at each other. Fear had replaced their earlier confidence. They realized they had made a terrible mistake. Outside, the desert wind continued to blow. A coyote howled in the distance, as if commenting on the scene inside the store. Jay began cleaning up the mess. Bottles, displays, scattered items. His movements were calm, professional, as if nothing unusual had happened. The youngest biker, still on the ground, looked up. "Who are you?" he asked, a mix of fear and respect in his voice. Jay just smiled, a small, controlled smile that said everything and nothing. Sirens approached in the distance. Red and blue lights would soon paint the desert landscape. But Jay was already returning to his normal routine, just another night at the gas station. The bikers would have a story to tell. But no one would believe them. A quiet security guard, a simple gas station, and a moment that would become local legend. The desert night continued, indifferent to the drama that had just unfolded. Jay checked the cash register, straightened a few items, waited for the police to arrive. Another day at work. Red and blue. Lights cut through the desert darkness. 2 police cruisers rolled into the gas station, their sirens silent but lights spinning. Officer Park, no relation to Jay, stepped out first, his experienced eyes taking in the scene. Jay stood exactly where he had been during the entire incident. Calm. Professional. The convenience store looked like a minor battlefield, with scattered drinks and knocked-over displays. The bikers sat on the ground looking defeated. Their earlier confidence had completely disappeared. Kang, the leader, avoided making eye contact with anyone. "What happened here?" Officer Park asked Jay. Jay's report was simple and straightforward. No extra details, no drama. Just pure facts. About attempted assault, property damage, and threat to public safety. The younger police officer began taking statements. The bikers looked smaller now, their leather jackets suddenly seeming less impressive. Their tough guy image had been completely shattered by a single security guard. Handcuffs clicked. One by one, the bikers were processed. Their motorcycles would be impounded. Their night of trouble had ended badly. Kang tried to argue. "He attacked us." But his words sounded weak, even to himself. The police reviewed the convenience store's security cameras. The footage told a clear story. The bikers had initiated the confrontation. Jay had responded with minimum necessary force. Outside, the desert night continued. Stars sparkled overhead. A distant coyote howled as if laughing at the human drama. "Are you military?" Officer Park asked Jay while writing the report. Jay simply nodded. No long explanation, no storytelling, just a simple confirmation. The younger police officer looked impressed. He had heard stories about veterans working security, but this was different. This was real. By midnight, the gas station was quiet again. The bikers were gone. The mess was being cleaned. Everything returned to normal. Jay continued his shift. Another ordinary night. But in local bars and truck stops, a story would spread about the quiet security guard who didn't look for trouble, but handled it perfectly when it came. A legend was born in the desert that night. Not through violence, not through aggression, but through calm, control, and unexpected capability. The gas station stood silent under the moonlight. Another story added to its long history. Just another night in the middle of nowhere. But for those involved, nothing would ever be the same. The desert kept its secrets. The highway continued its endless journey, and Jay Park returned to watching the night. Quiet, professional, ready, always ready.